World PD Day?
So, Parkinson's disease is a relatively common illness, as we all know, that tends to affect mostly older people. So, typically around about the time that people retire, and it's much more common in men, they'll get, for example, a shake of their hand, as we all know, and it's associated with slowness. But Parkinson's disease is certainly much, much more than that. And I think many people don't realize that it affects many functions of the brain, unfortunately. And to be honest, it's a very difficult disease for people to deal with and for their families to deal with. So it's a great burden on many patients and their caregivers. So even now, doctors and neurologists diagnose Parkinson's disease purely as we used to do 200 years ago, simply on the basis of a history and examination. Usually scans are completely unnecessary. They don't tell us much useful. There are specific scans that measure dopamine, which is lost in Parkinson's, but they're not commonly used and usually aren't required. So PD is in some ways similar to other conditions where you lose nerve cells in the brain and the nervous system. And examples of those would be, for example, motor neuron disease and Alzheimer's disease. And those aren't PD, but they're similar, as I said, in terms of that one loses cells. But PD is different from those in that we've always, or for many years, have had quite an effective replacement therapy, since PD is characterized by loss of the cells which make dopamine. So we can replace dopamine. And this can work very effectively, but sadly, really up to a point. And the problems are that PD is not limited to dopamine-related problems, but many other parts of the body and the nervous system are affected. And patients often experience, as a result of receiving quite large doses of dopamine as a pill, they'll often experience side effects from that. Not always, but they certainly are very well known to occur. There are certainly other medicines, but largely they relate to maintaining levels of dopamine in the body in one or other format. So really, at the moment in 2023, the bulk of our therapy relates to maintaining dopamine levels in the body in one or other way and treating many of the common problems of Parkinson's disease that are not related purely to loss of dopamine. So all treatments in medicine are increasingly expensive, and there certainly are treatments available in richer countries that are much less available in this country. Overall, though, the treatment is really very similar. So I routinely will say to patients that what we offer in this country is basically what you would get in the United Kingdom or the United States. There is one exception which applies generally to much older patients, and that relates to a particular pump that can infuse dopamine into the stomach. And that's generally not available in this country simply because it's extremely expensive. So again, rather sadly, since the mid-60s, when dopamine was established as being a useful treatment, the bulk of our treatment consists of modifying the levels of dopamine in the human brain in one or other way. And truly, that has not changed greatly for a number of decades. Probably the largest intervention of recent years has been deep brain stimulation, which is relatively widely available in this country. And that is a very useful treatment for particular settings in Parkinson's disease. I should emphasize it's certainly not for everybody, and patients need to check certain boxes before they could qualify for that surgery. I mentioned the infusion pump, which tends not to be available in this country due to expense. And there are a few other treatments which are relatively rare and not particularly remarkably effective. So That's where we stand at the moment. The cause of Parkinson's disease is truly a fascinating question, in part because people have been researching it for so long and yet really don't have clear answers on this. So at the start of my career, Parkinson's was viewed perhaps as predominantly environmental, less genetic. Towards the end of my career, the converse applies, but I should really make utterly clear that to state that Parkinson's is a genetic illness would be untrue. So many people with Parkinson's have a family member. About 1 in 15 patients have a family member. But that doesn't imply or make true that it's a genetic illness. So it's very important that people should be aware that if you have Parkinson's, the chance of your children getting Parkinson's from you is probably utterly remote. It's a complicated business, and the truth is, in 2023, we really do not know the cause of Parkinson's disease.
Hi, Debbie. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us today and give your perspective during your time as a PD research nurse.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, Nikita. So first of all, when I started, I made contact with the support group of South Africa through the Parkinson's Association of South Africa. I made contact with their national office in Pretoria. And then from there, I visited all of the support groups and did a little bit of a talk with each of them, telling them about the research and what we are doing, and then of course invited them to take part in the study. So that was one of my main routes of recruiting. And then the second point for recruitment was mainly visiting the Parkinson's clinic at Tygerberg Hospital with Prof. Carr. And so when they were done with their clinical examinations and their follow-up tests and so on, I would invite the patients to participate in the study. And I did all the sampling and recording of information then at the clinic, as well as when I visited the support groups, I did the sampling and all of the information and history gathering also at that time. So especially for the support groups, I traveled all over the country and often with lots of blood samples in my suitcases. So that was quite interesting to do. I had an overwhelmingly positive response, especially at the support groups. Visiting them and telling them about the research and what exactly is being done. People were very, very keen to take part in the study. And I think this is due to them, wanting to have more research done, wanting there to be progress in Parkinson's disease treatment and possibly finding a cure one day. So yes, people were very keen to take part in the research. So I found quite strongly in the lay community, people weren't or aren't very knowledgeable about PD, and it's generally referred to as an old people's disease or something that you get when you're old, and not many people know about the young onset PD. And yeah, it's very many misconceptions about the disease. The Parkinson's patients themselves are sometimes quite despondent with not enough services and support available to them. So, but overall, the patients that I worked with, the study participants and their families were all very positive about the advances and the work that we are doing in Parkinson's disease.
alles wat daarmee gepaard gaan, maar dit het ook wel 'n redelike groot invloed op jou eie daaglikse lewe, sowel as die familie wat saam is.
Parkinson's is nie die einde van die wêreld. Die enige ding wat Parkinson's vir my gedoen het, Parkinson's het sê ek het my stadiger gemaak.
People get a misinterpretation of what Parkinson did. A friend of mine invited me to go for a meal once. And he said to me, "Can you come with?" I said, "Why not?" But aren't you going to be shaking all the time? So Parkinson's, I think there's a big problem outside. People don't understand what it's all about.
Jaar gelede, in 2017, toen was ik 67 jaar.
I
Is 68 jaar.
I was 72 when I got Parkinson.
Ek is baie lief vir stap. Ek gaan elke oggend stap en op 'n stadium so het ek agtergekom en dit voel as ek stap of ek van balans af is net maar na my regterkant toe. En toe het ek na die algemene dokter toe gegaan wat toe bevestig het dat dit is Parkinson's.
My first symptom was a tremor that went on for about 2 years before I was actually diagnosed.
So I went to see the nurse and he said to me, "I had to do this liver thing. And you've got Parkinson's." I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but I got Parkinson's.
Ek het agtergekom as ek in die oggend skeer, dan terwyl ek aan die regterhand skeer en die linkerhand het so lekker gewabbel.
Hierdie stadium vir my is juist dit gaan oor my stappery. Ek kan nie meer gaan stap waar net so ver soos ek van tevore gestap het nie. En dat ek ook van my balans af is en ja, ek sleep ook meer, my voet sleep ook meer.
Dit het jou stadiger gemaak. En alles wat jy doen, doen jy dit stadiger. En jy dink wat jy doen.
My balance, I'm out of balance. It's like in a car that needs to go for a wheel alignment.
For me personally, it's my back. It was constant pain.
I don't know about the disease, but as for most people, I don't know what it's all about. You see these people that shake and go like that and going for a dance, and that's what your perception is.
Ek is 'n verpleegster, so nie ons bly op hierdie stadium bly as reeds aan 'n aftreeoord wat ons baie mense te doen kry met dieselfde probleem as jy en dan deur my verpleegprogram. So ek het geweet waaroor dit gaan.
Ek het geweet van die siekte Parkinson's, maar ek het nie 100% verstaan wat dit was nie, of ek het toe ek jong was, het ek eintlik nie daar, ek wou amper sy notisie daarvan gegee.
Dit is in my geval nie, want onthou ek is aan die heel begin, ek is nie soos baie van die mense wat saam met ons is, wat baie bewe en sulke goed doen, so ek is nog aan die beginstadium, so ek dink as ek dit vir iemand sê nie, dan sal hulle dit eers agterkom.
Ek dink nie so nie, al wat ek sê is dat die mense wat wel bewus is van dat ek Parkinson's het, is of hulle dan meer sympathiek teen jou wil optree, maar ek dink dit is wat jy daarvan maak.
I have a problem with that. When I go shopping and I got to go stand in the queue to pay the till, I do my payment and then I have to put the receipt back in my purse. And it takes me forever. And people get upset with me. I say, "Hey, I've got Parkinson's, you shut up."